Hello friends, I'm Laura Barat from laurabaratastrologer.com, and I've really wanted to do a series on synastry. There is the Vedic compatibility based on the moon, and but I also really enjoy Western astrology and their method of synastry. And what I really wanted to do a series on was the outer planets in synastry, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with Uranus and all of the different aspects and Uranus through the houses, and that's what I'm talking about today. Then move on to Neptune and Pluto. Uranus is the planet that is usually the most beneficial, or it takes the least amount of work, or it takes the least amount of conscious concentration, and it usually, I would say, about 80 to 90% of the time is a beneficial influence, just because it represents a beginning, new beginnings, new things. And it represents creativity and individuality. Okay. And, becoming more of who you are, becoming more of your true self. And you get an influx of creative inspiration. Okay. And that's just in general, not just only for synastry, but for natal astrology as well. Okay. And I wrote it down. I wanted to say what it actually was. It is the breakthrough of the creative force of the individual self. Okay. That is pretty much sums it up in a nutshell, what Uranus can do. And it's also, it really makes you see things in a completely different way, in a new perspective. And it's a planet of breakthroughs. In the natal chart, you have breakthroughs where it's placed in the houses and also in the signs, okay, and any planets it's conjoined. And that is a different aspect of astrology that hopefully I can talk about one day. But I just really wanted to talk about it in synastry because as far as I've seen, it's the outer planets are ignored in a way, or just not really focused on as much, but they have a huge impact on relationships because Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are planets of consciousness like the nodes, like Rahu and Ketu. We can't see them. Sometimes, very rarely, you can get a glimpse of Uranus if it's opposite the sun with the naked eye, but that is very rare. Most of the time, you cannot see those planets with just your eyes, okay? And so they become internalized planets of consciousness. They're not embodied, all right, like like Sun through Saturn. And they're similar to the nodes. Even though you can see them with a telescope and they're out there, the nodes are basically just points, but we can't see them. They can't see us. Okay. They don't have drishti, or they don't glance. Okay. But they are definitely planets of consciousness corresponding to the creative force, which is Uranus, the sustaining force, the, sustaining, improving upon, and kind of like a transcendent force. That's Neptune. And then the destructive force, which is Pluto. So Uranus is the easiest of all three. Okay. And, usually the most invigorating, the one that gives serious breakthroughs, the one that gives epiphanies. So, when Uranus in one person's chart touches certain points in their partner's chart, that really activates that area of life for them, whatever that planet represents, whatever that house represents. Uranus gives a lot of new insight. It's something about the person that inspires the other person. Okay, so you have Uranus touching planets and Uranus in houses. Today is about the houses, because I would have to explain a little more how I use the outer planets in respect to other planets. I don't use them in the way, usually I don't use them in the way that is most people are familiar with, like squares and semi-sextiles and things like that. I use them in a different way. And then, so I'm going to save that for another time. But Uranus through the houses, one person's Uranus through their partner's houses, okay? So Uranus takes about 7 years to move through a sign, give or take, okay? So usually, unless the partner is over 7 years, if there's a 7-year age difference, Uranus will probably be in the same sign around the same house cusp, unless it was near the end of a sign. Okay, so this is how I do it. This is how you do it. Uranus should be within 8 degrees of the cusp within a sign. If it's farther than 8 degrees, it's really not going to have that much of effect. And when I say 8 degrees, it's to what? To the house cusp. Okay, and the house cusp is the beginning of a house. So some people have 2 to 3 house cusps in one sign. And so you're going to take Uranus, the one person's Uranus, and the closest cusp it is 2 is going to be the most affected. But if it's within 8 degrees to another house cusp, then that as well will be affected. Okay, so within 8 degrees, that's the key. If Uranus is not within 8 degrees of certain house cusps, it's not going to have an effect. We're not looking at oppositions or squares or trines here. This is only conjunctions. Okay? And that also has to do with the way that I do Uranus conjunct planets and all the outer planets conjunct or opposite, square, all those types of things. It's a little more involved than what typical Western astrology uses. But, so, yeah, anyway, I'll just get on with it. All right, so Uranus in the first house. If your partner's Uranus is in your first house, that's really what they do is they're a major influence on you. And this is a major influence on par with having like Saturn or Jupiter, or one of the nodes near one of your identity factor planets. Okay. So Uranus near your first cusp or near the ascendant, within 8 degrees of the ascendant, you will actually be inspired by that person to improve your health and appearance, to become naturally who you are, to be more individualized, to start understanding yourself better, to just being really inspired to follow your natural individuality. You may even change your appearance in some fashion. And the first house is a huge influence because Uranus is the planet of new beginnings, okay? And the first house is a new you. It is you when you were born. So that other person, you're really going to feel from your partner, invigorated to be yourself, okay? You'll feel very comfortable around this person, being yourself. You'll want to explore things that you've always wanted but were held back by society or your family or your friends or just natural fears of doing something new. And you'll want to take adventures with this person. You'll want to be constantly doing something new. Okay? Now I'm going to go to the 5th house because there's certain houses that Uranus will be better in than others. And those houses are the fire houses, 1, 5, and 9, because those have to do with the self, with identity. All right? And that's what Uranus is about. It's about being your true individual self. Okay? It's what is constantly new that is flowing through you. So when the other person has their Uranus in your fire houses, just being around you, who they naturally are, inspires you to be who you naturally are. Okay. And not have any hang-ups or qualms about self-expression. And that carries over into what I'm going to say next, which is Uranus being in the 5th house. In your partner's Uranus falling in your 5th house. 5th house is self-expression and creativity. And I'm not going to go into the mundane meanings of the houses, like 5th house means children, spiritual practices, in speculation, those types of things. I'm talking more about the inner meanings of the 5th house, okay? And the inner meaning of the 5th house is creativity and self-expression. And also kind of understanding what is your kingdom. Okay, this is my kingdom. This is what I am. Things outside of my kingdom, that's what I'm not. All right? Corresponding to Leo, the 5th sign, of course, that's the sign of royalty and the lion, okay, which is the king of the jungle. But anyway, so when your partner has their Uranus conjunct your 5th house cusp, that is also an incredibly creative influence. You're going to just, they will inspire you to be more creative. Just all this ingenuity, innovative with what you already have. And you'll be inspired to express yourself in many different ways. Whatever you're more inclined towards creatively, you will be more inclined towards that and more inclined to manifest that in the real world. Okay? So that is a really wonderful, aspect between two charts. Okay? And it's always felt as a good thing. Usually. There's, especially in the fire houses. Okay? And the 9th house, if their Uranus is conjunct your 9th cusp, that is, you're going to feel more belief in yourself, belief in your purpose in life. They may make you understand more what is your purpose in life and to pursue it more strongly. What is your inspiration? And your purpose, your inspiration is something that is so natural to you. It's like breathing. It's not something that you desire a lot, because a lot of times things that we desire don't really align with who we are. Like, a lot of people might desire, to have a really profitable business, let's say. And they really desire this, and they think they're going to do all of these different things to reach that goal. But they're not a social person. They're not a energetic person. Let's just say they're lazy, they don't have a lot of energy. They like to relax. They're not really a worker bee, I could say. So that's not really natural to who they are. It's not natural it's not like they're breathing. It's not something that comes naturally. And what we really are is something that comes naturally. And what we want to do and follow our inspiration is natural to us. We don't have to change our entire existence and psyche and habits and completely change who we are just to reach a certain goal or think we want something, right? Or pursue that desire. So the Uranus person their presence in your life will help you to realize what that is, what that purpose is, and to follow that inspiration. They will also help you to follow that inspiration, disregarding all of the negativity that you had felt without them in your life. Let's say, society or expectations from your job or, friends and family, whatever it is, health problems, some of those things you will understand that you can pursue your inspiration anyway, in spite of those things. Okay. So it's a wonderful placement. All right. So now the next ones, the Artha Houses. Let me start with the air houses for secondarily, because I'm going from the best to the least best. I don't want to say the worst because there really isn't the worst. It's just a little more settling in certain houses. But, okay. So the air houses are 3, 7, and 11. Okay. The 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 11th house. And those houses have to do with relationships and communication. Okay. That's what air is. To have a relationship, you have to have communication, right? There has to be an exchange of ideas. And you're exchanging with other people. The 3rd house is more our associates, coworkers, teammates, neighbors, people who are in our life, not necessarily good friends, but they're in our life. Okay. It has to do with training and developing skills, especially with regard to art, performing art, music, that type of thing. And it's, will, just sheer will. And it has an element of competitiveness. It's a competitive house. Okay. It has to do with our siblings. We grow up, siblings are always fighting. Right. And, we just got some kittens not too long ago, and there are 2 siblings, 2 boys, and they're always fighting. That's all they do all day long is fight. So that's what it's like. It's a very competitive house. So when Uranus, your partner's Uranus is in your 3rd house, conjoin your 3rd cusp, they will activate that competitive nature in you, that athleticism. That's another thing about the 3rd house. Being more athletic, being, striving, pushing yourself, training, learning new skills. You want to learn something, how to do something that you've always wanted to do. And they can inspire you in that regard. Okay. They can also inspire you to, be more expressive and be more social and be more communicative with other people. Okay. Uranus in the 7th house. That's the house of sharing. That's the house of relationships. And relationships are really sharing. That's what a relationship is. Compromise. Okay. That's another 7th house, a big inner meaning of the 7th house. It's also wanting to be appreciated for your ability to share and your ability to be empathic, okay, or to be caring. And that your partner will inspire you to think of new ways to do that. Okay. To think of, you have a bag of tricks and you have all these different tricks and you can pull out different ones to be able to connect with somebody else, especially the partner. Okay. And it does make a person more, it makes a relationship more exciting. Definitely. Then you have, the 11th house. The 11th house is our social network and our peers and our colleagues. And it's love received. Okay. And that will, the person in your life, you may feel like, you'll have this new ideas about not really caring how much love you receive. Okay. That's basically the 11th house, what it means. We are so okay with our individuality. We are so okay with ourselves around others in a group that it doesn't matter whether they admire us or not, whether they give us accolades or not. Okay. Because we understand ourselves as an individual. And when you don't have to absorb to the group or go along with the group. And, when you have with your partner, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable and you'll have new ways of connecting with others to get what you need. That's another thing about the 11th house. Because it's our social network, when we need something, we put ourselves out there. We put a desire out there to say, okay, I need this. I'm going to tell a few people. They'll tell a few people and so on. And I'll bring in what I need. I'll bring in my net. Okay. So that partner with their Uranus in the 11th, you'll think of new ways to do that. Okay. Very important house, actually, for kind of getting what you want. All air houses are desire houses. They're houses of desire. And when Uranus is near or activating these houses of desire, we understand how to get what we want in new ways, in innovative ways. Okay. We have breakthroughs in those things. And so, yeah, that's a great place to have Uranus, have your partner, their Uranus in your houses. Okay. So, and now the other one, the third trine of houses is the Artha Trine, or the wealth material trine. And this has to do with, managing our material resources. It has to do with, getting what we need materially. And, so that's the second house. That is the 6th house and the 10th house. 2, 6, 10. Okay. All kind of meaning the same thing. A little different though. When Uranus is in the 2nd house, that has to do with managing our resources, especially to take care of our immediate familial responsibilities and our responsibilities to our good friends, our very close friends. Taking care of things. That's another big thing about the 2nd house. It's taking care of our environment, taking care of our possessions. Okay. Having self-worth, understanding that we are valuable as a person, and that we value what we have. Okay. The 2nd house is very much a house of, if you don't value what you have, if you're always complaining about what you don't have, it's because you don't have a lot of self-worth. You feel you're not worthy, and, there is something out there that you need and that you want so much, and you don't really take care of what is in your immediate environment. Okay. So, when Uranus is there, the other person inspires you to find new ways of finding your own self-worth. Okay? To see parts of yourself. Hey, that is really a worthy, valuable aspect of my personality or of who I am. And that's always a good thing, right? So, and they can also inspire you new ways of managing your resources. Uranus in the 6th house, that has to do with overcoming adversities and dealing with problems. That's all the 6th house is. Anything in the 6th house usually is something that keeps us from a smooth ride. All right. It's something we really need to pay attention to. It's problems, paying attention to details, getting through tedious, boring things, irritating things, enemies, people who are jealous of us. So that is a really important house, for spiritual growth. 6, 8, and 12. Those are the Dashtana houses, or the, more difficult houses in the horoscope. And, but the 6th has to do with burning karma. Okay. So when you have your partner whose Uranus falls in your 6th, then they're gonna inspire you to have new ways and more beneficial ways of dealing with those things, with dealing with the adversities of life. They'll also inspire you to take care of your health in new, innovative ways. Okay? You might become interested in homeopathy or naturopathy or, herbal medicine, whatever it is. You may decide you want to start fasting or, create a new fitness regimen, something like that. So that's also, very beneficial, right? And also in dealing with people who are difficult, who are jealous of you, who want to harm you. They're going to support you by showing you better, more productive ways of doing that and things that you never thought of before. Okay? Uranus in the 10th house. Well, that has to do with career and creating value for the world at large, or creating value for people beyond your immediate family. Okay? That's really the 10th. The 10th is about worldly power and influence, about how you are seen by the world. So when Uranus is near that house cusp, or near the midheaven, then you'll be inspired to be more productive in your career in a way that you gain more personal power, or I shouldn't say personal power, worldly power and influence. Okay? Where you find new ways of being an authority figure in your realm, in what you do. Okay? And managing that worldly realm. It's all about, it is very much a house of creating value, but it creates value for people that you don't even know. Okay? Because it's the 10th, it's right above us. When we walk outside, it's right up in the sky, right overhead. So you're able to see, your life, and you're able to control your life from overhead. And they will show you that, or they will inspire you to find new ways of doing that. Okay? They'll inspire you to find new ways to shine. That's what the 10th house is. All right? So that's also really nice. Now, going to the moksha houses or the water houses. These can be a little trickier. They're not negative and by any means, but because these are inner hidden houses. These are the houses of the emotional realm, the realm of deep-seated, the realm of emotional security, happiness, contentment, also, psychological hang-ups and psychological complexes. So if you're a person who is not inwardly focused, the Uranus in one of these houses, which is 4, 8, and 12, or next to your nadir, your 4th house cusp, the 8th house cusp, or the 12th house cusp, this can seem a little unsettling. Okay, they're going to bring up some emotions in you that are new and maybe you're not used to dealing with. And it's going to be from a very deep place. They'll be, in the 4th house, what they'll do is they'll bring up very new emotions, feelings that you're just not accustomed to and that you want to, but usually those emotions are beneficial and they show you a new way of feeling about things that you never thought of before. And if you are a person that has some type of melancholy, then there might be a little bit of resistance there. Okay. But they will enable you to bring out a new perspective of looking at things that is emotionally satisfying. Also, new ways of feeling about your past, looking at your past. You may have a certain idea about your life and your childhood and growing up and things that happened in the past, but they'll show you you'll have a breakthrough in how you view that, how you emotionally view that. Uranus in the 8th house. Now, this is the most unsettling one. The 8th house is always the most unsettling. It's a very deep house. It carries a lot of shadows and demons. I want to say even. It's kind of diving into your dark side a little bit, things that you don't want to face, memories you might not want to face. It's basically, the 8th house has to do with psychological and emotional therapy and, really understanding your psychological motivations. Now, this person with their Uranus will show you new ways of doing that, and will help you to break through some of these negative, detrimental patterns. Sabotaging yourself. Okay? They can also get you interested in different types of occult practices or different types of spiritual practices that aren't really accepted by the society you live in. That's what the 8th house is. That's why it's the 12th from the 9th, because the 9th house is culture and the religion we grow up in. And when you deviate from that, in the West, you can do that now, more or less. There are some things that are very taboo in the West, but if you go to a completely different religion or spiritual path or, hidden practices, that can be considered taboo. But this Uranus person with their Uranus next to your 8th cusp will actually might get you interested in those types of things or something totally different a different way of going within and facing what it is that you don't like about yourself. That's the 8th house. Okay? So a very intense aspect. Then you have Uranus in the 12th. And the 12th house has to do with letting go. Okay? That's all it really is. It's letting go, especially of egocentric attitudes and complexes. That's the 12th house. And it's the natural progression from the 8th house, because the 8th house is all about understanding who we are and some of our more darker aspects of our psyche and integrating those things. And then we go to the 12th house, and the 12th house is letting go of that. Letting go of those things that we think we are. We have these ideas about ourselves and ideas about the world too, which is really just a reflection about our ideas about ourselves. And so when we go to the 12th, we can let go, shed those things that are false. They're false ideas. The Uranus person will activate that talent within you. You'll make breakthroughs through that so you can let some of that go. Okay? Very therapeutic position. And when, and you let it go in a way where it's no longer in your consciousness. Okay, it's not like you say, I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to think about this anymore. And then you keep thinking about it and churning it over in your mind and dwelling upon it and obsessing over it. That's more of an 8th house thing. The 12th house thing is, oh, I went through that stage. I don't even really think about that anymore. Yeah, that happened in the past, but I have a new slate now. I have a new way I'm going to approach the world, my ideas and concepts of the world and about myself. And some of that old stuff that I was thinking about before, that's all gone. I don't even realize it anymore. So that's also a really good position if you're someone who is making that journey. You know, not everybody is. Some people just are very rigid in their outlook on life and their religious, spiritual outlook and their psychological outlook. So that can, you know, if you get, usually those people aren't interested in astrology. So you don't really find, you probably, if you are in a relationship with someone who has their Uranus on your 12th house cusp, then that is something that you'll embrace, that you'll enjoy, that really is something that motivates you. But a lot of people are not that self-aware, so they don't, that's going to be a little unsettling, having Uranus in these water houses. Unless, of course, there's heavy affliction to the water houses, then Uranus there can be very unsettling. You're very attracted to the person. You're fascinated by this person because of what they stir up within you when Uranus is in one of these water houses. Okay? So, next video is going to be about Uranus touching the planets. This is a really big one. And very interesting. Just, the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are a powerhouse of energy, a powerhouse behind our motivations, as are the nodes. Okay? So, yeah, till next time, thank you for watching. Bye.